Welcome to Look Around Florida. I'm your host, Sean McFall, aka the Florida Man. I'm glad y'all can be here tonight. We got Roy Hudson, AOT councilman and candidate for Lieutenant Commander in Chief. He's in the background right now, so we're going to be bringing him up shortly. Johnny from Springfield, Missouri, buddy. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. So like I said, we got candidate for Lieutenant Commander in Chief in the background right now. Roy Hudson, Ronnie Nichols in the house, Bobby Van Zant, Al from the Tennessee division. Welcome, welcome. So we're going to be bringing Roy up here in a little bit, talk about his candidacy for Lieutenant Commander in Chief, what he has planned, what his thoughts are, and stuff like that. Laurel Schultz, Bob Highball, how y'all doing tonight? So these episodes, please share them out with your camps. We do stream not only on Facebook, but we also stream on YouTube. So I had it set up. That's Q&A. There you go. Like and subscribe either on Facebook or YouTube. Trying to keep you members of the Florida division and members from other states up to date with what we're going on here in Florida. So we have I just did a Confederate Memorial Day this past weekend in Arcadia. Great time. Good people showed up, good friends and all that. So my camp and the Arcadia camp combined at Fort Ogden Cemetery. The reason why we combined forces on that one, my camp namesake, Lieutenant Francis Calvin Morgan Bogus Camp, Bogus is buried in that cemetery. So we always do a joint force and celebrate Confederate Memorial Day there. So we're going to give it a little time. Well, people are joining in. Let me get this out. This way it covers my mouth. Most of you know anything and everything can fly out of my mouth at a moment's notice. So this keeps me out of the doghouse and my guests out of the doghouse. Alrighty. Let me go. Like I said, most of the we have quite events coming up this weekend. We have Civil War Days, April the 25th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at 1601 Oak Street, Melbourne, Florida. Civil War reenactors, appear uniform equipment, living history demonstrations, educational displays. Family-friendly activities, free admission of all ages. Then we have the United Daughters of the Confederacy, Gainesville Miller, Chapter 2234, and the John C. Breckenridge Camp are doing a Confederate Memorial Day service this Saturday at 11 a.m. at Linden Cemetery at 4735 Linden, Florida. If you're going to this event, you got questions on this event, you can get with Bob Highball, Jerry Peacock, or Joyce White. They can answer your questions, or Jerry Peacock could put you in the color guard. The Madison State Perry Camp, SEV Camp, 1424 Confederate Memorial Day celebration this Saturday, April the 25th at noon at the Perry Plantation in Gainesville, Florida. The camp will provide ham and drinks. Kindly bring a covered dish to share. If you have any questions on this one, their camp lieutenant commander is in the chat. That would be Ronnie Nichols, aka Captain Nichols of the 3rd Battalion, Company D. And April is Confederate Heritage Month. And let me make sure. I think this was last weekend. No. 12th Brigade with the 14th Brigade are doing their their annual motorcade. Ladies of the Black Rose Society Order of the Confederate Rose, Chapter 22 and 19, United Daughters of the Confederacy. Members of the Sons of the Union Veterans, West Palm Beach. Major General Thomas J. McKean, Camp 93, will assist with all the weapon demonstration in the ceremony. Ceremony will take place at the Woodlawn Cemetery, 1301 South Dixie Highway in West Palm Beach, this Saturday at 2 p.m. sharp. We'll have a dinner with fellowship at Cracker Barrel afterwards at 2411 Mucka Boulevard, West Palm Beach, Florida. It's a little hard. This one's a little bit hard to read, so bear with me. You are cordially invited to honor the memory and the sacrifice of those Remembrance Tuesday, April the 28th at 5 p.m. Memorial ceremony begins at 6 p.m. Located at Veterans Park, Confederate Veteran Statue, 2601 East Fort King Street, Ocala, Florida. Covered fellowship guests are warmly invited to bring a dish to share as we fellowship. And following their ceremony, hosted by the Colonel Samuel George Rogers, Camp SCV, 1865, with the General Benville Rogers Order of the Confederate Rose, 18. If you have any questions on this event, Bob Highball is in the house. We got this event coming up. Save the date. Florida Cracker Cowboy Heritage Festival is May 1st and May 3rd at Alva Museum in Alva, Florida. If you have any questions on this event, please reach out to me. I do help out I got very close friends of mine at the Alva Museum. Hosted by the 703 Quincy Young Guards, mass burial ceremony. Guest speaker would be Dan Cox, May the 23rd at 11 a.m. I'm still waiting on getting further details on this event. So as soon as I get them, I'll put them out to you guys. Keep in mind, we are honoring Confederate history, Sons of Confederate Veterans, Florida Division. This is our billboard that is up right now off of Highway 95. Over in the Melbourne area, from what I'm understanding, Roy could comment on that as soon as I bring him up. Lewis, how you been, buddy? Good to see you. Linda Hudson in the house. Donald Gaines. Delana Leon. All righty. We got quite a bit of people on, so let's bring Roy Hudson up, and he can fill us in on what he's doing for his candidacy for Lieutenant Commander-in-Chief, his ideas, and what he's thinking about. G'day, Roy. How you doing today, sir?
I'm fine, Sean. Thanks for having me. On the Confederate billboard you just talked about, that's at it's just north of mile marker 215 on 95 if you're southbound, right around Titusville.
Titusville. Okay, good to know. Thank you, sir. I knew you would have the answer for that one.
I drove past it a couple of days ago, and it looks great.
Okay, so where the billboard is,
it's prominent.
It's clear. Everybody can see it driving by.
Absolutely.
Good to know. Good to know.
It's in a good spot. And 95, is crazy busy. So.
Yeah, I won't make a comment on 95. I've been on it multiple times. So, yeah, going from Fort Lauderdale all the way up to Melbourne. It's nuts.
Yep, it is.
And I thought 75 was nuts. So, Roy.
Yes, sir.
I know you're running for Lieutenant Commander-in-Chief. Oh. Uh, if you want to introduce yourself, most of the people in the chat are the Florida
Yeah.
Division members, but we do got some people from other states like
Sure.
Missouri, Tennessee, and on. If you want to
Okay.
introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Roy Hudson. I am currently the aide de camp in the Captain J.J. Dixon Camp 1387. Matter of fact, for your listeners, this coming Thursday night will be our 45th anniversary, and uh, Lieutenant Commander Chief Tony Griffin is going to come in and be our speaker that night. So,
Ooh.
so that's pretty good. But I'm an aide de camp there. I help train the new officers there, so they give me the title of aide de camp. So that's what I do to help them. I'm a lieutenant commander in the Florida Division. I'm a Metcav major for 3D, and I've been in the SCV for 35 years at this point. I've held every job at the camp level. I started a camp that is still functioning today back in '93. So, and that's Camp 1595 in Fort Pierce. So I've been around the organization a good bit of time, and as far as at the GEC level, I was the inspector in chief for Commander Boshears when he was commander in chief, which gave me time to sit at the table and see how the sausage is made, even though you don't get a vote. You know, you can only comment on things that you're working on that the boss asks you to talk about. And then the last 2 years, I've been the Army of Tennessee councilman, and in that time, AOT councilman is responsible for 9 states and the country of Brazil. And I've driven to the 9 states, but I've never driven to Brazil. So that's my one deficit. So, but anyway, I love the SCV. When I retired for the third time 5 years ago, I my wife knows that I'm a workaholic and I have to be involved. And I just told her, I said, I'm dedicating the rest of my life to the SCV. This is what I live for. I've forsaken the other organizations I belong to devote full time to trying to see what I can do and use my talent for the SCV. As far as my personal background, work background, basically, uh, U.S. Army vet, 49 years in law enforcement. I've served in every capacity from deputy or patrolman on up through corporal, sergeant, lieutenant, captain, major, director, chief. Uh, so I've had every function there is in the agencies I've worked for. And one thing that I really bring to the table that I try to impress upon people, I know what our organization needs to fix it because I've been watching it for 4 years. When you hire me professionally to go in and take care of an organization, I tell whoever hires me, give me 90 days to do an assessment. Well, I've had almost 4 years, and what I can tell you is that the organization has some problems simply because we've had good people with good intentions that have been at the top, but they really have never run an organization. And in my background, I've been a chief executive officer in 2 organizations and a chief operating officer in another. And I've run 500 people in a $50 million budget. So our $1.6 million budget with 4 employees is not that difficult. I've also been the number 3 guy in the second largest law enforcement 501c3, which is the Florida Sheriff's Association, and
Mhm.
our organization, the SCV, is a 501c3. So I've got that type of background. So I have a really good understanding of how organizations work and what you need to do to put them on track.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, yeah, especially with the law enforcement background. I grew up in that atmosphere, so I know how that is, and
Yeah.
sleepless nights and stuff like that. I mean, like I said, I grew up in it. Uh, my question to you, Roy, is hypothetically speaking,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, say July, we're in Lexington. It
Right.
comes down that you won.
Okay.
What are you going to start off running with?
Well, there in my platform, and if people go to my website, which is www.scvroyhudson.com, they'll be able to see it in writing. But basically, Some people talk about studies and committees. I've got tangible action things that we can do to get this ball rolling. And as Lieutenant Commander in Chief, your primary job is recruiting and retention, but your other job is also to be there to support the Commander in Chief, to go to appearances he can't make, and to represent the organization. So, one of the first things I want to do, usually when I'm talking to a crowd, Sean, I just go, how many people here have taken a job in the SCV without any training? And invariably, we all do this because that's the way the organization is set up. One of the things I want to do is set up Confederate Officers Corps training. And basically, that's a fancy name for coming up with training programs that people can access online to go in. Say you're elected first lieutenant commander. You'll be able to go online, pull up that syllabus, go through it, and at the end, you'll know everything that you should do in that position. And that's for every job in the camp, because well-run camps are camps that are active and camps that are able to retain members. Poorly run camps cannot retain members. So we've got to work on making sure everybody knows their job and they know the best practices. So that's one of the things that I'm really interested in doing. Another thing that I will gladly admit in public here that I stole from Bob Hiball's camp is a community service corps. Bob has come up with a program, and as soon as I heard about it, I fell in love with it, because a lot of people don't know anything about our organization, and they think that we're a bunch of bad guys sitting in a dark room planning bad stuff, instead of being community based and a lot of veterans and people that care about the community. And what Bob has done basically is he's gone out to the VFWs and the American Legions and said, hey, we're from the Sons of Confederate Veterans, and we are the oldest continuously operating veterans organization in the country. And they kind of look at you for Confederate. And Bob said a couple of times, it was like, no, you need to just go ahead and get away. But finally, they went in there and said, listen, don't you have somebody that needs like a wheelchair ramp built or something? And somebody said, well, yeah, Fred needs a wheelchair ramp. Well, Bob and his guys had the carpentry skills. They went out and built a wheelchair ramp for a veteran. Well, that kind of kicked the door open. And once they recognize that you're a patriotic person who's a part of the community, that's going to open that door. It's going to shed a more positive light on the entire organization. Now, are there some camps that are so active right now they don't need the program? Probably yes. But I can tell you that Bob's camp, and I think one more camp in Florida, and Bob may be able to correct me, and there's one or two camps in Tennessee that are currently getting this up and running. So what I want to do is make the program. Bob's got a great little logo and patch you can get, but I want to make the program available to any camp that wants it. And I think any camp that wants to improve themselves will probably bite on this. And as you know, when I ran for councilman, my big thing was communications. It always has been, because I've taught leadership in 48 states out of 50 to federal, state, and local agencies. And my biggest thing is you always have to be willing to communicate. You got to return emails, you got to return text messages and phone calls. If you don't return people's communications, they're going to turn you off. So if you want to do that, um, that's kind of what I took to the GEC is, people in camps had concerns and they weren't getting to the GEC, and stuff at the GEC still not doing a great job of getting to the camps, but it's getting better. So last October, Commander-in-Chief Kennedy said, we're going to start a communications committee, and Roy, we're going to let you be the chairman of it since you ran on that. And somebody spoke up at the table and said, we have one of those. And somebody else said, yeah, but they haven't done anything. So at that point, I told the commander-in-chief, I'll do this as long as you expect me to do something, because if you give me a job, it's going to get done. Now, I was lucky. I had a great committee. I had people on the committee like Jamie Graham and Tony Griffin and Harrison Dawes and Frank Powell and Eric Pravetti, and a lot of people that really could devote some time and effort to being part of this committee. And for 20 years, everybody has said the website at headquarters sucks, to use a technical term. And for those of us that try to use it, I can assert that. And so we decided that one thing we need to do, was get a professionally operated, professionally run website at headquarters, one that is recruitment friendly and easy to navigate. That would also work with our store that we have at the SCV. So these are some things that half of the committee looked at. The other half of the committee was headed by Harrison, and we knew that we had to get active on social media platforms if we want to continue to grow and attract more people. So when we got working on that, we basically reported back last March, one, that we had put bids out to three companies, and we had a bid that we wanted to accept. And in the final meeting, when the bid for that for the website, we actually included all four full-time employees of the SCV because they use it every day.
Yeah.
And they sat there and they were wowed. And basically, it looks like from first assessment that the money that we save, because we're paying fees on like 6 different credit cards and a bunch of stuff at the store, they're saying everything's going to go through one payment source, and the money we save monthly will probably pay for the monthly bill on the website. So that's kind of really cool. So I haven't talked to Adam recently, but we're probably, they told us it'd be 30 days from the day they got the check and the signed contract. We're getting close to 30 days. So I'm excited about that, getting ready to go 10-8 soon. And then the other half, Harrison worked really hard and did a really good job. And basically, we're getting ready to go live on the SCV live on 3 different platforms that, which would be Instagram, X, and Facebook. And so all of a sudden, the SCV is going to be visible on several platforms that we never were before. And I'm just excited as heck about that, because if people know who we are, we aren't this big dark secret. I think recruitment is going to get a lot better.
Yeah.
Another recruiting idea that I have, and I've got somebody who's willing to come up with the cost to get it off the ground, as long as the SCV will do advertising. Is we're talking about a Confederate States radio, a 24/7 computer-based radio station, and basically just like you have a Pandora sign on your phone, and you just you download the app and you can push the app and you got your music. You can do that with this, and it'll be probably, we're thinking about country and bluegrass and classic rock for music, and then Southern stories and SCV stories, and that's 24/7. And all the SCV will have to do is agree to spend some money advertising, and being the lieutenant commander in chief, that'll be part of my budget. So I'd like to see us be able to do that for sure. Another idea, if you want me to keep going,
Well,
is
I have a question.
go ahead.
Something you talked about when you were AOT councilman.
Mm-hmm.
What got you hooked on the SCV? That you saw an ad in a Civil War magazine, Civil War Times, or something like that. Are you going to continue that?
Well, first of all, Civil War Times, that was 1990. It wasn't an ad, by the way. It was an article, and the guy signed it that he was a camp commander, Baxter Perkinson from the John Quincy Marr camp in Petersburg, Virginia. And I wrote the magazine, and they hooked us up phone number wise, and that's how I got it. But it wasn't an ad in the magazine. I've got some media people that I'm talking to, and as much as I would love magazines. I love getting my Confederate veteran, because I'm a book and paper guy, uh, probably due to my generation and the fact that I like the feel of it in my hands.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's the most effective way to spend our money right now. But I'm
Okay.
going but I'm going to look at it and assess it. But one of the other things that I'm thinking about doing right now that I'm really excited about, because I'm learning so much that I didn't know a couple of years ago. Um, geo mapping.
Yeah.
You familiar? Okay. Well, I'm just learning about it, and I'm tickled and excited about it, because we have the technology right now available where we could pick out, say, the 3 most visited battlefields between the war between the states,
Mhm.
Gettysburg, Chickamauga, wherever you want to pick out. And when people get within, say, 500 yards of that, advertisements for the SCV pop up on their phone. kind of like when you're sitting on the sofa talking to somebody, and an hour later it starts coming across your phone or your computer, what you were just talking about. Uh,
Yeah.
if they're within that area, they would get SCV recruitment advertisements. And
Ooh.
I think that is another piece using geo mapping to do that. It's another piece of advertising we can do fairly reasonably. So that's another idea that I have because I think it's just we've got to get on board with the technology.
Yes,
So
we
so,
do.
so uh, just thinking about that, and if you want to go on some more, I've learned a lot more about what the younger generation that is involved, the ones that stay all day looking at their phones with the thumbs doing this, um,
Right.
they they uh, have a short attention span apparently, and there's something I'm sure you're aware of it called, I don't know if the audience is, but it's called shorts, and
Yeah.
shorts are about 1 minute or less. And what you do with a short is you give them enough information to whet their appetite or set a hook, and then you can direct them to a longer video or something that may hold their attention a little bit more. So, and I've talked to Harrison. We have the technology to come up and create these shorts and then be able to direct them to a longer SCV video. So these are just some of the tech things that are possible right now.
Mhm.
Um, we have got to do a better job. If you get past those things, everybody says we have to go after young people. We have to go after the children. I am torn with that. I think we need to, but we have a cadet program, and I think Harrison was like the number 5 or number 6 cadet. But all we did was give kids a certificate and a little pen. Well, that's going to hold their attention span about that, and they're going to put it in the sock drawer. It's going to be over with.
Yeah.
So if we're going to do that program, we have to find men that are dedicated to make it an active organization, to give these kids field trips, to give them stuff to involve them, so they fall in love with their heritage and they fall in love with our organization. So if we're going to do it, we got to do it right. That's my whole thing. If we're just going to send them a certificate, don't bother. Don't bother with it all.
Something we used to do here in the division. It sounds similar to what you're talking about. I think it was called the Sam Davis Youth Camp.
Yeah, and that's still active all
Okay.
in different parts of the South. I'm a firm believer. What It's a Christian youth camp. These kids learn about history. They teach them etiquette. They teach them Southern etiquette. They teach them, I believe, they teach them dancing. Uh,
Yeah.
they just the kids have a great time with it. We need to expand those, and along those same lines, who should be our partner, the UDC. They control the children of the Confederacy. There's another pool that we can fish from. So we need to make sure that our bonds with the UDC are tighter than they've been in the past. It's one thing I'll give Jason Boshears a lot of credit for is a couple years ago he had a summit at Elm Springs and he invited most all the heritage organizations. He had the Union veterans and he had the MOS&B and he had the UDC, Order of Confederate Rose. He had a bunch of people that came there to talk about the fact that what we're facing right now is not just an attack on Southern or Confederate heritage. We're facing an attack on American heritage. So it affects us all. I mean, heck, they've damaged the statue of the 54th Massachusetts in Boston.
Yeah.
They've damaged the Lincoln statue. So it's not just our side. We're the low hanging fruit. But if we all work together, we can get more done. And I never thought I'd say this, but it's been a couple of months ago that I was out in St. Cloud for the rededication of a United, what do they call themselves? The
Sons
Union
of the Union.
Veterans,
Yep.
Sons of Union Veterans Hall. They got the mayor bought it, fixed it all up, and they had a rededication. They asked me to come in and represent the SEV, and I felt like I was surrounded by the enemy. But nevertheless, uh, the guys that were there from their organization were cordial. They were friendly, and they saw the necessity for us working together. So we have to build these bridges and keep them intact if we want to be successful going into the future. Going back to the recruitment, we talked about kids.
Yeah.
The best pool to recruit from in our organization is people, men between the ages of 35 and 55. Very simply because most of them are into their careers at that point. A lot of them already have their families partially grown at that point, and some of them have started to lose their mom and dad at that point. And a lot of times when that happens, you start thinking about, well, what's my ancestry? What's my heritage? And so that's the right group to pick from. And
Mhm.
so we have to, a lot of things we do will appeal to them. So you can't just fish in the pond of the teenagers and below. You've got to fish in the adult pond with people that have the wherewithal and maybe the time and the energy to get involved in our organization.
Uh, it, this just came to my mind. Has there been any thoughts about teaming up with ancestral.com? The reason I asked that, I saw an ad the other day from Ancestral, uh, but it was based on the DAR, the Daughters of the American
Right.
Revolution. That, you know,
I have heard of no uh, idea of hooking up with that commercial enterprise. I don't know, if there'd be money involved or whatever. Because I know just as an individual, I belong to Ancestry, and I think it's almost $400 a year. It's $399 a year. So I don't know if the organization has ever looked at it. I have not heard of that since I've been sitting around the table.
yeah, I don't know if it's available or not, but yeah, I did see an ad the other day. That's why I was asking.
Yeah. Well, I don't have a answer for you there because I haven't seen that.
Okay. Yeah, just like you said, yeah. I mean, I knew a little bit of my history,
Hmm.
but just like you said, about 35 to 4 in their 40s, you start
Yeah.
diving into it even heavier.
Yeah, 35 to 55 is prime time, and they're young enough to have some longevity in the organization. But once we get them hooked, we got to keep them interested, and
Yeah.
you got to have an active camp and a camp that is friendly and welcoming. If you want to keep them, we can get a lot of people that want to get a certificate to put on a wall, but if we get people that come to a camp and the camp is active, we can keep them. It's the camps that just eat and have a sandwich and say hi and go home. People get tired of that. They want to put their energies into something that they feel is impactful. And I don't care whether it's being in the color guard or cleaning headstones or any of the being in parades, anything that we do, just go into heritage things, doing the Confederate Heritage Month programs that we do at the different cemeteries and stuff. Find out what people really are interested in, and then use their talents there. I mean,
Yeah.
but you gotta start early. You can't let them come in and sit in the back of the room and nobody talk to them. You got to engage them pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's why, yeah, you've been to my camp meeting.
Yep.
There's no head of a table or anything. We all sit together at one table.
Hmm.
And that works out for me because, instead of yelling across the room and trying to bounce ideas off each other.
Yeah, it's leadership is one of those things where there's a bunch of different type of leaders, and I often have said what I prefer to be and what I try to be most of the time is a servant leader. I'm there to serve the people that I'm working with. I'm no better. I just got a different job. And that's what I used to tell people in law enforcement when I was director of law enforcement ops, and I'd have a deputy come in and want to complain about something.
Yeah.
And he said, well, you don't understand, your major. I said, well, I was a deputy. I said, as a matter of fact, there's only one head of the agency, and he's sitting down the hall. The rest of us are deputies. We just have different jobs. And it's in our organization. We have
Yeah.
different jobs. And no one in the camp is more important than anything. I think if I was going to pick a guy that was most important in my camp, it's probably the adjutant, because everybody knows the adjutants, they're the glue. They hold us together. And if they didn't do their job well, we'd be in bad shape. And I don't want to even guess what the division adjutant has to go through. So,
Oh, yeah.
so, but anyway, yeah, we should work as a family, and occasionally there's going to be family difficulties. Someone's going to get mad at somebody over. We need to get over that pretty quick, because if a camp gets divided, starts his head bumping, that's when you lose members.
Yep.
And it happened. It happened in my camp before I joined that camp. Uh, I'm guessing probably Probably maybe 10 years ago, if I remember what they were talking. But there was two opposing groups in the camp, and one group split off and went and formed another not SCV camp that is still active today in the northern part of Brevard County. So
Right.
it's a shame. We don't need to lose our members.
Correct. And that's the thing about our organization that I love. Yeah, just like you said, we got people in there that love putting on the uniform, love going to reenacting. We got
Mhm.
people that love doing color guard. We got people that love cemeteries.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I do. But the thing about it is, we do need to team up, and take care of projects, camps helping out other camps, brigades helping out other brigades, divisions helping out other divisions. Yeah, it's like you said, it's teamwork.
Yeah.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah. If we want to be successful, these are just some of the things that we can do. And being an organizational guy, you really can't. I know how to make an organization run. I know how to fix what's broken. But you can't do that as Lieutenant Commander in Chief. The one that has the power to do that is our Commander in Chief, simply because of the 16 people that sit around that table, not to mention all the committees. The Commander in Chief gets to appoint 5 people that are voting members.
Yep.
And so that's where the horsepower lies. As Lieutenant Commander in Chief, I can do a lot of things I just spoke about. And
Yeah.
everything I talked about is stuff that will be done. It can and will be done. Um, it's not just a pie in the sky idea. It's something that we can accomplish. And the real test will be at the end of 2 years: is our decline in membership slowed down, or has it turned around and started to loop back up? And
Yeah.
that's of course what we all want to see happen. But that won't happen until our retention gets better. Everybody says recruiting and retention. We do a fair job of recruiting, but retaining is what bothers me. I don't have the figure in front of me, but it's an astounding figure of how many people that we still have on the rolls at headquarters that have not renewed for the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, it's
Yeah.
thousands.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they all leave for a reason.
Yep. Multiple different reasons. Yep.
Yeah, and that's why, I'm a firm believer. If somebody doesn't show up for 2 camp meetings in a row, somebody picks up the phone and says, "Hey, we miss you. Are you okay?" Just let them know they're thought about and they're cared for. And I know in my camp, Steve Smith has done that. Some people in chasing down dues, and hey, we haven't seen you for a while. Dues is coming up, and they were just so thrilled that he called them and they remembered him and that they cared about him. They're going to try to get to the meeting. So
Yeah.
that personal contact's important.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, as far as yeah, the GEC. How often does the GEC meet per year?
The GC has two in-person meetings at Elm Springs, and that's in March and in October. But
Okay.
we meet several times during a year by Zoom meeting because
Oh,
things come up all the time, and there's probably anything discipline or anything else. It's not unusual for the commander in chief to or his chief of staff to send an email out saying the boss wants to have a Zoom meeting at 8 o'clock whatever day, and we go do it. I don't want to give you an inaccurate account, but probably at least a half a dozen Zoom meetings during the year.
oh, okay. So you don't have to drive all the way up to Elm
No,
Springs
that's
every time
850
you guys
miles
have
for
a meeting.
me. That's 850 miles round trip for me. And I do it, one, because I like going to Elm Springs, and two, it's part of the job. But it sure is easier to whip one of the iPads, set at my table, and and talk, and it's a whole lot cheaper for everybody. There's no hotel involved. There's no 850 miles of driving and gasoline. So, but yeah, but the two are mandatory meetings, and it's good to meet in person because I'm like a lot of people. This is fine, just looking through a screen, but I'd rather sit there by the pool and look you in the eyes and get that personal contact. So, and
Yeah,
I think, and I'm a firm believer in that personal contact.
yeah, and I will agree on that. Yeah, you can hear a whole bunch of hearsay and all that stuff, but when you're looking somebody straight in the eye, it's a different story.
Right. So
But it's good to know that the GEC does meet. And I know that they meet in person at Elm Springs, and you guys are going to do the same thing there in Lexington in person. But it's good to know
yeah.
that you guys do meet on a regular basis with Zoom.
Yeah, it's the technology's there, and why not use it? Because your GEC people are from all over the country.
Oh
So,
yeah.
oh yeah, it's not like one or two states. I mean, that we're from all over the country, and it just facilitates getting work done that we need to do.
Okay. I think you touched on this a little bit, Roy, but I'm going to ask it anyhow. What as AOT councilman, what kind of accomplishments that you have got done?
Well, again, I think the biggest accomplishment probably is this cotton picking. Chairing this committee that is getting us a brand new website and getting us live on 3 platforms. I don't think it gets a whole lot bigger than that. They have kicked that can down the road for 20 years, and it's finally gotten taken care of. And so I was just proud that the boss asked me to chair that committee. But again, I couldn't have got it done without some really good people on that committee who were willing to work and take care of stuff. So that's uh, that's the biggest thing. And I think also, as councilman, your job is to represent the members
Yeah.
to the GEC. And I think if Kyle Thompson was on here, he would tell you I have spent hours and hours and hours in contact with our compatriots in Kentucky because they've had a real personnel issue up there that has drug on for several years. It finally seems put to bed at this point. But, you know, I just work very closely with them. And anyone who's called me and said, I want this to get to the GEC. Tom Wood has called me before from Tennessee and said, I want this. He was wanted the us to write a letter from the GEC to Secretary of War Hegseth about getting the Hunley Award back approved in all the schools again. And
Okay.
and so I took that to the table for Commander Wood, and we got it done. So anytime somebody bring something to me, I tell them I will take it to the table. It may not get the results you want, but at least it will get a hearing. And that's what my job is to make sure that works pretty well for the folks.
That's cool. That's
Yeah.
good to know that.
Mhm.
I love bringing you on, Roy, because you fill us in on the GEC, and you being councilman, you do a great job on that, filling us in, keeping us in the loop. Yeah, there's a lot of us. We're just either camp officers or
Mhm.
camp members.
Well,
We care about this organization.
for 30 years, I didn't know how anything worked out of the division level, and I've had quite an education in the last couple of years. And I've told the story before, but um, people have to realize that I never sought national office. Never had that. Didn't want to do that until Commander Bo Shears, when he was the lieutenant commander, talked to me and said, "Do you ever think about helping out nationally?" I says, "Well, if somebody needs me, I knew I was getting ready to retire. I'll help." And he says, "Well, give me your resume." And he asked me to be the inspector in chief, and that kind of got my foot in the door. And then I was asked to run for AOT councilman. I've done that, and that my plan was basically to do that for one more term and then to come back to the division. And back in June, my phone start ringing off the hook with people that I highly respect say, "You need to run for lieutenant commander in chief."
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, "I can't commit to that. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of money. Got to get my wife's approval." And I says, "It's going to change my personal life for the next bunch of years. A lot of road time. I mean, it's a big commitment. It's a giant commitment."
Yep.
But and after finally, I said, "Well, I've got to pray about it." And I talked to Linda, and she said she's always got my back when I want to do something. And I prayed about it for 10 days. I hardly slept, and finally, became clear to me that maybe somebody told me, one of the people I highly respect in the organization said, "You're the right guy at the right time to get changes made." And when I made, and of course, once I made the commitment, I called him back, said, "Okay, I'm going to do this." And once I take on a mission, then I'm going to win. I'm going to accomplish it, and that's my intent, and that's why I've been traveling so hard.
Oh, I know. You were, what was it? A few weeks ago, you were in Texas, Virginia.
Uh-huh.
I think you're on break right now before you go to the Carolinas.
Yep, yep. And I was in Missouri before that, and I mean, I basically in the next 12 weeks I'll be in 10 states. So, um, I,
Wow.
yeah. So I'm running pretty hard. Um, I love talking to the people because when you're talking to your SCV crowd and you're not on a public forum, you can be a lot more direct as to things that you like to fix and things that you see that needs fixing.
Yeah.
And so I tell everybody, including your audience, if they have a question, get a hold of me. I will always return any type of communication, and I will tell you the truth, even if it's not what you want to hear. But I'll tell you the way I see stuff, and it may not always agree with folks. But a
Yeah.
good leader is going to, I admire Nathan Bedford Forrest because you don't get 32 horses shot out from under you in combat, sitting in a tent in the rear. I'm an old infantryman, and we believe in being aggressive, and that's what the SCV needs now. We need to get off of the defense and start working on the offense.
Yeah. And I agree with you on that. We've lost too much of our heritage, monuments. Yeah. It's time to take back uh, the
The narrative.
thank you. You
I help you when I can.
it's pretty bad you already know what I'm thinking.
I've known you a long time, Sean.
I
but
know, I know.
and this might be a perfect time for I'm sure everybody listening has seen the news article today where they've brought down 11 indictments against the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center. That's been one of our biggest enemies, people that have blacklisted us and said we were racist and neo-Confederate and all this kind of crap. They've been spreading lies about the SEV and our people for 20 years, and all of a sudden, they're finding out that these guys are bad news, which a lot of us have been saying. You can't rely on the thing they say. It's all slant to the left. This may be a
Yeah.
good time to get the wave rolling the other way because when you get 11 federal indictments, I don't care how much money you got, you're going to be back on your heels.
Yeah, because I just had that talk with somebody the other day. Yeah, they saw my hat and everything, accused me of racist, the
Uh,
organization being racist. I said, "Have you met Nelson Webbush yet?"
hmm
They go, "Who's that?" Google that name.
hmm
And what's your phone number? I got a little video you need to watch.
Yeah, well, you know, I will have a civil conversation with anybody about the differences of opinion between those that are not in our favor. I'll have a civil conversation. I don't want a heated conversation because
Exactly.
then you might lose a gentleman and get to hillbilly, and you don't want that. Um, but um, there are people out there, and what a lot of us have taken a long time to realize. Because I was always of the opinion, if we can just get these people to read, if we can get these people to get educated, they'll
Yeah.
learn the truth. But the matter is, there are some people that just hate us and they don't want to learn anything. And those you got to learn to walk away from and just let them live in their own cesspool because they just don't want to get involved and they don't want to learn the truth. They have an opinion and they're not going to change it.
Yeah. And Victor, you brought up a good point. Rich Garcia on Latinos in the Confederacy.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the world of Rich, and Rich will be on the GEC one day. I can assure you. He brings a lot. Matter of fact, in June, I'm doing a sweep through Tennessee, and I'm going to be talking to Rich's camp. So I'm looking forward to being up there. I think the world of Rich, he's got some great ideas,
Oh, yeah.
and he brought. I can tell you. Well, you've been in the SCV a long time, Sean. 20 years ago, nobody ever said anything about Latinos in the SCV, and
Exactly.
here it
Well,
is. He's got a book with a list of names, and you know it's pretty impressive when you look at it to see. Oh my goodness, there were there were Tejanos, there were people from Mexico, people from Cuba, all these different Latin heritage folks were part of the SCV, so
yeah,
or part of the Confederate Army, and of course, I grew up knowing that we had black folks in the Confederate Army. There's a lot of them. From my hometown, I think there were 95 free blacks from Lynchburg, Virginia, that joined the Confederate Army, freemen that went to fight for their home state being invaded. So, people don't, they don't teach that in school anymore. Matter of fact, the last young kids that I talked to said they barely touched on Vietnam and they don't touch at all on U.S. history or world history. So,
Exactly.
and
It,
another thing that I want to do while you just touched that nerve
yeah,
is we need as far as getting kids, we are the SCV is full of really good educators, people that are professional educators. We need to come up with a curriculum or syllabus that we can take to all these homeschooling people. Say, because I've talked to homeschoolers, sometimes they're hunting for something the kids to do.
yeah,
Here's a syllabus about the South or the war between the states. And we could easily create that because we have the talent to do it. But that's one more. But somebody asked me, it may have been on Tennessee Tuesday last night. They asked me about public schools. I said, I would love us to get in public schools. I says, that's why I want the Hundley Medal to become accepted again, because that gets a foot in the door. But our place we can go right now is homeschooling. And homeschooling is more prevalent in the United States now than it's ever been. So,
yeah. And I'm glad you touched on that subject about homeschooling because I'm getting hit up lately about some homeschoolers down in my area be, because of the book that the state of Florida puts out about the war.
mhm.
And, and I use them as a handout. I used it up there at the Pioneer Days in Arcadia,
Yeah,
and I had some people that did homeschooling ask me for my name and phone number.
right.
Yeah, because I had ran out of those books, and as soon as I get more
Well,
in, for me to drop them off to them.
when we used to go out to Narcoossee Mills the last couple of years before it went away, we had our flag history of the flag setup that we do at our camp,
Yeah,
and the adults that came in and brought kids by were really interested. At the end, a couple of them said, can you give me a way to get a hold of you? Can you come there and talk to our homeschoolers? I said, absolutely, I'll do
yeah,
that, because you got to set the hook early. And if you're doing, whether you want to call it homeschool lessons or living history, if a kid can hold a 3-band Enfield, which is usually bigger than they are, or they can hold a sword that's encased in this sheath, or they could put on a kepi, it just sets the hook. The kids are very visual, and they like to touch and feel, and that really helps set the hook on them. And that one interaction may give them that spark they need to start looking at things on their own, and maybe growing up not to be such a less slanted person.
yeah. And yeah, public schools, we all have our opinions on that one, but I think homeschoolers is the way
Absolutely.
because the parents that I've talked to are a lot more open minded. Yeah, we were talking about Rich Garcia, and he came up with a cool idea a while
Yep.
back. Yeah,
Absolutely. The trading cards.
yep. I keep them by my computer all the time because yeah, when somebody asks me a question about a Confederate officer,
Yeah, it was a brilliant idea. Like I said, Rich is a good idea guy. He's done a lot, along with a couple other people in Tennessee, to really help their recruiting. They're doing good up there.
oh yeah, yep. All right, Roy. Let's get to our question part. See if any of our members have any questions for you or our viewers.
Okay.
This is our question and answering time. So if you guys have any questions for Roy Hudson, feel free to ask. And like he said, I'll give you an answer.
Yep.
So feel free to ask questions. Because I know we got people outside of Florida that are watching the show. We just had Sandy Coy from Arkansas just joined the chat, and Annette Lindsay, Derek Glover, and Randy Cook just had joined. Kim Colors has joined. So feel free to ask Roy questions. He's not shy. If he was shy, he wouldn't be coming on this show.
Well, maybe I answered all the questions, Sean. You never know.
Possibility. They could have had the same question that I had.
Sure.
Oh, Victor. Roy.
Yeah.
We're wrapping everything up. Do you have any last comments or anything?
No, a lot of you know me. Maybe a couple of you don't, but believe me when I tell you, I love this organization with all my heart. I've dedicated heart and soul on this mission. At this point, since June, I've driven 45,000 miles, spent thousands of dollars, and to try to accomplish this mission. By the time I get back from North Carolina, I'll be doing a full service and a new set of tires on my vehicle. But just know that if you feel it in your heart that you can support me, I would really appreciate it. And if you can't support me, at least say a prayer for me and for my trips and so forth. But please go to my website, www.scvroyhudson.com. Take a minute to really look through it, get an idea of who I am, get an idea of what I want to do for the organization, and give you an idea of how my background will support my ability to do these things. And everything else, all I can say for the rest of the audience is thank you for your attention, and God bless Dixie. And I'm out here if you need me.
Thank you, Roy. I appreciate it. The website address that Roy's talking about is scrolling down at the bottom of the screen. Feel free to go and check that out. And Victor being Victor. I'm sorry.
I understand. Vic, I still love you no matter what you say. I can't see it here. So.
That's all right. But Roy, I do appreciate you take your time out of your busy schedule, to give us some updates on what happened at the last GEC meeting and talk about your platform as runner for Lieutenant Commander in Chief. I do appreciate it, sir, and I want to say thank you. So, guys, as we're wrapping everything up, like I said, it is Confederate Memorial Month. Just about every camp within the Florida Division is doing something. Regardless if you're having a ceremony or not, get out to a cemetery. Make sure you flag a Confederate grave. And the one thing I did learn from Reese Across America, shout out their name so they can hear you.
As long as you speak their name, they're still alive. They're not forgotten. Amen.
Exactly. So with that being said, go with God. Hope you all have a good day, good week. I'll see you next Wednesday. Stay Southern, stay out of trouble, and may God bless you on your adventures.
Good night,
Until
sir.
Next Wednesday, have a good night.
My name is Nelson W. Winbush. I'm a member of the Jacob Sumner Camp 1516, Sons of Confederate Veterans. My reason for joining the Sons of Confederate Veterans, after the NAACP declared they would destroy and remove everything Confederate in 1990, I decided that I would do all I could to make sure that people understood what the Confederacy stood for.